that's the biggest mistake a lot of managers do. They think they have the solution and they know best, and then they do the way they think. They haven't really listened to people who is actually in your team who works with these things every day. They get a direction from the management and so we're going to do this and then we're going to do it this way because I think it's the best way. Very often you can tweak it or you can do it another way and get the people in your team with you because you've actually listened to their experience and you acknowledge their competence.
Welcome to Team Up with Beata, the podcast at the intersection of humans and AI. Join me for honest conversations that help you collaborate better, build healthier teams, and feel optimistic about the future. Together, we'll explore how to lead with empathy and navigate the future of work with confidence. My guest today is Tineke Gramenious. She is a leader and advisor with more than 30 years of experience in customer service, support, and leadership. She spent nearly 2 decades at Microsoft, working across technical support, service operations, and customer care, before continuing her journey through her own company as a project manager, consultant, and interim leader, and now also as an author. Over the years, she has worked closely with teams and especially new, often young managers, helping them grow into confident leaders. You may have noticed the photo of Tineke on the cover of today's podcast. And as always, that's intentional. For each episode, I invite my guests to share an image that carries a personal story. Tineke chose a photo of herself holding her brand new book, which feels like a beautiful symbol of this stage in her journey, where she's sharing her experience and lessons with the next generation of leaders. In this episode, Tineke shares her leadership journey, the insights she gained along the way, and what it really means to become a great and trusted leader. We talk about navigating change, supporting new managers, building trust in teams, working across different cultures, and adapting leadership in the world increasingly shaped by AI. All right, let's get into it. Tineke, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here with us today. We are meeting to talk about your journey, your experience, your wonderful career, and also the latest book that you have written recently. But let's not jump ahead. How are you today? How has been your week, your last month? I know you traveled.
Yes, I did. So today I'm fine. I just concluded my latest assignment actually on Monday. Before that, this month I was traveling to South Africa. So one of my, fantastic trip, which traveling is very close to my heart for the moment, as you know.
Yeah. Why did you choose South Africa?
I've been there once before and I completely fell in love with it. We traveled the south part of South Africa, the Garden Route, and then to Cape Town, played golf, which is one of my big interests. But then I have never been to a safari, so that's what we wanted to do this time. So now we traveled to Johannesburg and then traveled up north to the Kruger Park and did some safari there, close to the park.
You saw all the
we saw all the big 5, the elephant, the leopard, the buffalo, the rhino, and lion.
Okay, that's so cool. I mean, I think I've only seen elephant in the zoo.
No, they are so amazing. And when they walk, they have this huge feet, but it's like, you can almost not hear them. They are amazing. Yes.
Okay, that's something I should...
It's like they're walking on cotton. It's amazing to watch.
Like
them.
Cats.
Yeah, almost, because, their big paws, they just, there's no sound. Amazing. But then they can get very aggressive and very noisy as well. But I didn't realize that they could walk so quietly.
Gracious.
Yeah.
Wow, impressive. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Your trip to South Africa wasn't just part of some random holiday, right? Can you tell us a little bit more why you went to South Africa and soon you're going to Tuscany?
Well, how do you say when you change course
Yeah.
in life? Yeah.
Mm?
So I'm changing course and doing something new. I have just trained to become a travel guide or a
A
tour
travel
guide.
guide.
Yeah,
Tour
tour
guide.
guide
Mm.
for Rolfs Flygenbus,
Mm.
which is a Swedish brand.
Mm.
There are many others, of course, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they are very good. So I'm just in the middle of the training. So I'm going on my first trip together with another travel guide to see how it all works, beginning of April.
Yeah.
And then in May, end of April and May, I'm going on my first own trips as a travel guide.
Yeah. You'll take your own tour, your
Yes,
own groups.
my own group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. One of the reasons why we're starting the podcast with it, because I think it's fascinating. After over 30 years in leadership, you're jumping into becoming a tour guide.
Mhm.
Where did that idea came from to change the course in life, to transition to something so new and exciting and completely different?
Yeah, well, I did some traveling when I was young. I lived in Paris for a year and have been traveling my whole life to different places, both for work. I've been working in many different countries. When I was working for Microsoft, I got to travel, and also when I became my own, I had assignments helping companies in different countries.
Yeah.
So I've traveled a lot, and when I was not working, I traveled for pleasure across the globe. So I've been to many, many, many countries and love traveling. And I'm always doing the due diligence, as we say, at home for my family or for the friends that I'm traveling with. So I've been a private tour guide for very, very many years.
For
For a
free.
long time. Yeah, for free. So I do everything that you have to do and check and keep track of everything that happens when you come to a place and what it looks like and how to get around and buses and taxis and things like that. So I always check everything before I travel myself. So it's very much the same thing. But I love meeting new people, learning about new cultures. It's one of the biggest passions in my life.
How does that compare? Because I can imagine that being a tour guide, you have to be very organized. I've only once traveled with someone so organized that she even like printed an what do you call it?
An
A plan of
itinerary?
where we're going. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah.
And then she laminated it.
Oh, I have
She
a
had
laminating machine, I can tell you. I am a very, very organized person
really.
because I've been working as a project manager for so many years. This is one of the things I usually say when you work as a project manager,
Mm.
it's like herdle cats. So all of them run their own way, and then
Yeah.
you have to, try to get them together
Yeah.
and going in the same direction.
Yeah.
So as a project manager or a tour leader or, as a manager as well,
Yeah.
you have to get people to come together and going in the same direction.
Yeah. You have to keep an eye on
Yeah. Yeah.
on all
and
your
be
little.
very organized. I'm very structured and into details. I know printing on papers and keeping track of tickets and things like that. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can imagine, of course, managing a big team, and especially in your case, in a huge organization. That is how do you stay organized? I mean, you say this is something you like. Is that a skill you developed over the years?
No, I would say that I've always been very organized. I'm very structured the things and both at work and at home. I'm always trying to find the most efficient way to do things, like
Hmm.
even loading the dishwasher in the
Sure. Yeah.
kitchen. Yeah, you organize it in a certain way, and it's the same thing when you're a project manager and you have the project plan and I'm very, very structured and always looking to find ways to make things more efficient and easy for others and trying to look at ways to make it more simple and easy. And yeah, so I
Yeah.
think that's something that I have from when I was little. I don't know, but
Kind of born with it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's just something that I do and I've always done.
Yeah. It's a personality trait in a way,
Yes, I
right?
would say. Yeah.
Or your strength.
Yeah, I would say it's a strength.
Huh?
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating because, not to compare, but I find myself being able to keep an eye of like groups, teams, organizations, but when it comes to my own life,
Hmm.
I need someone like you. so, so I think it's fascinating, but I can relate with that the dishwasher has to be structured a certain way.
Exactly. Yes. And when somebody else puts something, that it's not supposed to, it's like, yeah, well, we can just redo it when we're going to put it on. And it's like, why do it twice? It's so inefficient. It's like,
Inefficient.
yeah, you start from the inside and, go out and it's easy. It's just things that it can, and then it can get annoying for other people's in the family, things that you argue about. But, and I have to let go a bit and be not too rigid with it.
You've learned that over the
Yeah.
years,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
was
I've
that
learned
a
that the hard way.
feedback you received?
Exactly. It's like, okay, pick your fights, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important, right? Otherwise we become the the ones that they point at. Fascinating, actually. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about the past, like the beginning of Tineke's career
Hmm.
in the leadership and beyond. How did you first move into leadership? Was this something that you transitioned to, applied for? How did you
I did
become?
not. Why I became a manager for the first time, it was at Microsoft. I had a couple of jobs when I moved from the south of Sweden to Stockholm. I got a job as a marketing assistant in a big IT company, and then they were closing down. So we got help to find new jobs, and they organized an interview at Microsoft. And I was like, ugh. I had worked for Pågens Bakery, which is in the bread
Very
and crisp
famous.
rolls and things like that. Yes. Before in Malmo, before I moved in the food industry. So IT for me was like a little bit boring and, IT was not really my thing. But then they organized this interview at Microsoft and I was like, it was really, there was a certain energy when we came there and, everybody was quite young and it felt,
Yeah.
it felt like a cool company. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I can, this looks good. And then I was offered a position as a supervisor for a little admin team within the technical support department.
Mm. And this is like
And
mid-90s we're talking about,
yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
no, yeah, beginning of 19, it was 90, yeah, but 94, yeah,
94.
beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I realized working at technical support that even if we were in the IT business, customer service and service, that was my passion. To really give a good experience to people, try to help people, and service and customer support is definitely that has been my passion throughout my career. And even, I mean, Microsoft was a great company to work for. They had so much opportunity. And when I came in, I was recruited as a supervisor for this little team. It was for 5 people. The first time I came in, we had a girl who was not happy in her position there. So one of the first things I had to do was to let somebody go. And that
Oh
was really,
no,
really hard.
that's so painful.
I got support from my manager with doing this, but really felt that was tough. And she was really sad. And, I was sad to let her go. And it was really hard. So it was a crash course when I started. But then I had this admin team. I had help. So I didn't really have the real managerial tasks there. It was not until I started as a manager for an in-source team that I really felt that I was doing management in a bigger team. And that was Anna, my boss at that time. She asked me if I wanted to take this position. And I was like, I can't do that. That's a huge team. It's 25 people.
25 people.
I don't know how to do that. I can't be manager. It's like, yes, of course you can. So she saw the potential in me. She believed in me. I didn't really apply for that job. Didn't see myself as a manager at all in the
Would you
beginning.
say she was like your first mentor, or
I would say she was fantastic. So I worked together with her in the leadership team in technical support. So we had a lot of different characters, different responsible people in the team, but she really put together a great team. And that's one of the things that I really learned from her, to connect and put together a team with people that has other skills than you, to really make it strong. So whenever we were in strategic discussions or tactical discussions, we had people with views from all kinds of different angles. So when we put together our plans and things, we always had a lot of things already thought through, and we were very different characters in the leadership team, but that was really, really fun to work with her.
Okay. I
Yeah.
like that you're from the early reflections, you reflect on sort of the first, one of the first managers you
Yeah.
had.
Yeah,
Would you say
absolutely.
she had a really big impact on
I would say
your?
definitely. I just got the thinking of being a manager from her,
Yeah.
realizing that that was actually a path that I could take.
What I find interesting is that we're talking 94 and later, and you're at the huge enterprise, Microsoft. I mean, it's sort of growing. I
Mhm.
remember using Windows 95 at the
Yeah, yeah.
biggest. So this is this is the I still think it's the best Windows it ever been created.
Mhm.
Um, and back then you are working with another female leader. Was it just the two of you? Was it natural that women were in the leadership back then? Because I'm thinking about today how women are sort of fighting for being in the leadership and being in leadership positions, and sometimes it can be quite difficult and challenging. But
Mm.
how was it in around that time, especially in Microsoft?
Yeah, no, I would say that we definitely had good opportunities, and we were a lot of female leaders.
Mm.
We centralized technical support. It was spread out in the Nordic countries, Norway, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden. But then we centralized the advisors and recruited really, really good people managers in technical support. And I mean, I think we were more girls than boys at that time. So, but it was
Okay.
at least, yeah, I think I was just thinking how many, I think we were three male and four, I can't really remember,
Yeah,
but it was
roughly.
definitely not,
Was
something negative to be a woman.
was that something that people focused on back then? Was it something that there were some
Um,
strong goals or?
it could be. I think they were striving to have an equal amount of female and male, I think, in the company. I've never felt that it was negative to be a woman or that you had any issues getting a position because you were a woman. That I've never felt.
I love to
Um,
hear that
yeah, no,
story.
I've
Yeah,
never felt that and experienced.
yeah,
Others
yeah.
might, but I've never seen that. We've had a lot of fantastic women in management positions.
Mm. I am especially interested in this because with the media these days, and I totally acknowledge that many leaders have it hard. Many
Mm,
women have been pushed away from leadership positions, and I have experienced this myself too. But I think it's interesting that we don't highlight the positive stories. So
yeah, no,
there has been so much
mm,
positivity,
yeah,
right?
I would definitely say that. I
Yeah.
had a lot of female colleagues.
What would you say that surprised you the most about managing people throughout your whole career?
To become a manager, I think I had a vision of that you would get to decide a lot of things and be
Mm.
the person who actually decide what to do. And I think that a lot of young people who become a manager today, they was like, I'm going to be a manager because then I'll get to decide what to do.
Hmm.
Um, you very seldom get to decide. I wouldn't say seldom, but there's always directions and there is always things you have to take into considerations and things. And I would say that what you do as a manager is more of a firefighter and conflict management than anything else. As a manager, you always have less time than you need. You always have more tasks than you can do. So you need to be structured and prioritize what you need to do. And there are always some kind of, not conflict all the time, but, things that happens that you need to deal with. So it's either in your team or between groups or with your manager, you need to do things. So it's a lot of things is to handle situations
Mm.
much, much more than I thought before. I thought
Yeah.
it would be a little bit more glamorous to being a manager, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the boss. I'm the boss lady here.
Yeah, 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 actually, but you're the one who has to deal with everything
Mm. And
and
I mean, you had
own that.
25 people at the beginning in your first
Hmm.
first large team. So tackling that must have been
Yeah,
a challenge on its
yeah,
own.
that was definitely a challenge.
I'm kind of curious to learn a little bit about the failures.
Hmm.
Fail the first attempt in learning. What are some mistakes that you, not you personally, but you have seen leaders repeating over and over again, especially when they are new leaders? What are some of the things that they do and that maybe they could, after listening to you, learn how to avoid?
Yeah. I would say leaders that they find that they need to be extremely firm and make sure that they get their direction, that they get their way of things without listening. Because I would say that one of the most important skills that you need to be a manager is to listen. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So to be responsive and to really actively listen to people, that is the best way of being a good manager. I would say to really listen between the lines, what people say, and to make sense of everything, and then trying to figure out what is the best way forward. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about things, but to listen and, you know, to understand which way to go or how to solve situations, I think that's what most people do not do. They don't listen enough. That's the biggest mistake a lot of managers do. They think they have the solution and they know best, and then they do the way they think. They haven't really listened to people who is actually in your team who works with these things every day. They get a direction from the management, and so we're going to do this, and then we're going to do it this way because I think it's the best way. Very often you can tweak it or you can do it another way and get the people in your team with you because you've actually listened to their experience and you acknowledge their competence and their expertise. That's the way to get people on board, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because that's what leadership is about, to get things done through others, because leadership is something you can't do on your own. You have to have your team with you and get help from them. So it's all about inspiring or encourage people to do their utmost to get the team to where you need to be or to get things done.
One of the ingredients that is very important in this case, it's psychological safety. So the people actually trust you as a leader, right? How do you think in this day and age we can build that psychological safety within our teams, even if it's a small or large team, especially when we are new in leadership and management, with all the things that are happening in the world these days, AI, wars, you name it, crisis, right, left and center, loss of jobs. How do you think managers, can I say managers? I don't like that word.
Yeah.
Managers, or even middle managers, or that
Leaders
are
in general.
leaders in general, how they can, how they can position themselves in the right place, and what can they do? I mean, obviously, actively listening, it's the number one skill. I agree with you 100%. What else can we do?
So, from my perspective, to be a good leader is to be a decent human being. For me, it is that's what it's all about. And I think that's where you get people on board. If you are a decent human being, you don't need to be perfect in every sense, but in every situation, you try to make it as good as possible for everyone in the situation. And if you always strive to be a decent human being in any situation, I think you will get a long way with that. And it's, you have all these these different difficult situations when you have to let go of people or if they're not doing their job. If you always have in your mind that next time the positions could be reversed. So I could be the one. So this person might bloom and become a manager. Suddenly we could be in the other situation. So I always keep that in mind in negotiations or in situations when you handle your team. Treat people with decency and respect and help them keep their dignity. Because that's in all situations, nobody wants to not have their dignity.
Yeah. What about the pressures, especially in tech these days? The last few years, there's been a lot of even the new managers or existing managers having to be letting go of almost the entire team. I know a manager that had to first remove his entire team keep 2 people, and then
Mhm.
he had to be the one leaving too.
Yeah.
We are dealing with something extraordinary that maybe never
Yeah.
happened in the past.
No.
Um,
And during COVID, I was closing down the whole Norwegian customer service function
mm.
because nobody was traveling. So they didn't need to have customer service in Norwegian.
How did you handle that? I mean,
I mean, it is really difficult. It is tough. But I was the project manager for that, and they had support in many
mm,
different countries. But you can do these things. It is hard. Of course, it's
mm,
hard. But you always have to put yourself in that situation and think, okay, if I were in that chair, how would I like to be treated? And then you treat people that way. You do it with respect and dignity, and you really, I mean, you have to explain why it's happening. You need to make them understand why you need to do this and help them in any way you can. And be kind and respectful,
yeah,
I would say.
yeah. In the end of the day, it's not something you can control, right?
No,
Sometimes we just get directives, and this is the
exactly.
decision the company is going,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sad but true.
It is sad but
Mm,
true. It's these things that need to be, as long as you try to be a decent person, I think you can come out in the other way. People will be angry at you and they will be so, but it takes time. And there is also when you have something that changes, there is a certain way of your emotions. It's difficult and you are angry and you have all these emotions, but then you come over the top and then you realize that we understand why this will happen and you put it behind you. And very often with change, it's the start of something new. But it takes time, and you need to acknowledge that I've known about this change or this for a long time, and I need to wait for the team to always also come to the same position as I am. And over time, a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh God, that was the best thing that could have happened to me. I did this and I tried something new, and
yeah.
I've always been doing this, but I wasn't really happy on that position. But then I
Mm,
just had to do something new, and then I said, I tried this. That has happened many times.
Something positive at the other end. But
Yeah.
how do you not let this affect you personally?
It,
Yeah.
it it does. Of course, it's
Mm,
hard, and you feel horrible, and
mm,
and so on. But me as a person, I like change, so I try to give as much of that to other people as I can, trying to lift up the positive things about change and what you do. And I talk about this in my book as well, that if you work with your team all the
mm,
time and teach them that change is nothing dangerous,
mm,
that it can always lead to something, stay curious and do new things and try new things. If you train your team in that manner, I think over time, if something changes and the organizational changes, or you need to change teams or anything that involves change, if you're comfortable in that, then it's easier for you if something happens, and you can rise up and you can take them and say, okay, that was really hard, and also acknowledge the time it takes to get to that point, that you are allowed to be angry and sad and everything that goes with the change. If something happens, you will come out in a positive way on the other side.
mm. If not stronger.
Yeah, very often so. Yeah.
Of course, there are people that choose to focus on the negative. People choose to focus on opportunities, on the positive, what can come out of it.
Yeah.
With the current wave of layoffs, I've seen people transitioning to careers they've never thought they would.
Yeah.
I have seen people completely doing something that they've always dreamt of, but also, of course, people struggling and needing help.
Yeah.
That's important to acknowledge too. I'm extremely passionate about different cultures. So working across different cultures. And I think you have experienced so much different cultures across so many over 30 years of your experience. What have you learned from working with different cultures? You personally being Swedish, you mentioned you work with Norwegians, very not so far away from each other, yet there are some nuances. But globally, what have you learned, or what have you seen working with international teams, with people from different cultures? Have you seen something, yeah, that was really different, challenging, weird?
Okay, so there's a lot of things, but from my personality of being curious,
Hmm.
I think I always find something exciting when I come to new places. I don't look at it as an obstacle. I look at it as, oh, they do things differently here. I need to learn how they do it. If I can pick something good from that I can take home with me. So that's my take on cultural things, then I can come to a culture that I don't agree to at all. There could be very often it's very hierarchy. There's a strong hierarchy, and in Sweden we do everything in consensus and things like that. But at the same time, it could be a little bit too much of consensus. Sometimes nothing happens. So I think a little bit of both is good. But I have one funny story. I visited a friend in Asia many years ago. He worked as a high manager in a company. And he felt every day when he was working, all his team, they were working so late and it was fascinating. He was like, oh my God, they work a lot here. And one day he was a bit hungry. So he went out at 5 or 5:30 to get a sandwich and then came back to the office and it was empty. And then he realized that in Asia, you do not leave until your manager leaves. Yeah. That's something that you don't do. So after that, he realized that because he had to sit and work overtime, he made everybody else stay overtime. And then he was like, I can do that. So every day at 5 o'clock, he took a walk and he just went out to get some air. And when he came back, everybody had been able to go home. So then he could just go on and work. This is many years ago, and that has probably changed now with the hybrid work. But I felt it was so fun. And these things, you need to find the way that they work and how you can juggle around it, so to speak, and not make anything harder for people that are in the country where there is a different culture. Yeah. So you always need to find the ways. And I usually ask, how does this work, and how I'm being very open with that I'm curious.
Leading with curiosity.
Yeah, that's it.
I like that. I know that you mentioned the consensus in Sweden, and I've worked in many teams where maybe there is one Swedish person or 3 Swedish people, it doesn't matter. But that seeking of consensus can be, for example, for Eastern Europeans, which is my background, can be quite frustrating.
Yes.
And until we learn that there is beauty in both, we can learn from each other. It can be, I have seen people very frustrated. Yeah. Why can't we just make decision? And I was like, because we need to agree on this and everyone's opinion matters. Yeah. And it's shocking for people. Of course, I don't try to change anyone, but it is very inspirational. I personally come from Poland, worked in England, and now live in Sweden. And I think in every culture, I sort of picked up something with me. But oftentimes, people only work in their own culture or in their own country with minds alike. So
I've worked a lot with English people, and I had a funny thing with my manager, Mark, in the beginning when I write emails and send directions, I'm very direct and, hi, this is what we need to do, blah, 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 blah. And I send off the email, and I think I had him on copy or something. And then I got back, I was like, oh, you cannot be so direct and tell people what to do. And so you need to be oh, hello, how are you? And how's your day? And all the little fluff around it. And I was like, why? So I wanted to action, and I was very... And then there was something I learned a little bit the hard way. You talk a little bit about other things, and you need to be polite, and there's another way of writing things. It was also in the beginning of the 90s when I or in the 90s when I worked with him, which was quite fun.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like about the Swedish culture that I take with me everywhere, it's the Swedish fika, right?
Yes.
You mentioned this in your book. Do you also take this with you into different cultures, different countries in the past? Like you were turning up to a meeting in Singapore and then bam, I brought you kanelbulle.
Oh, absolutely. Not maybe kanelbulle, but when I traveled overseas and I was in many different countries, I usually always buy something at the airport, some Marabou chocolate or some Swedish candy, and we always try that, and that was very appreciated. Yeah. To the call centers where I went to, I had Swedish chocolate with me for the agents, and they loved it. So for me, it is very much about that, just a little bit golden edge to things, and fika and something sweet to your coffee. It beats everything.
Yeah, I've worked in companies where fika was like a ritual that it happened twice a day. And I thought this was years ago. And I think now it's sort of a privilege to take that much time out of your day.
Definitely. You usually don't do that. But I worked for Microsoft in the European team. We were all placed in different countries, and I was the only person in the Nordics. So it was lonely sometimes. We only met once a quarter physically. but we had coffee breaks, virtual coffee breaks, and everybody was working from home. And then we always had a cup of coffee and something sweet. And we talked about, we had our pets or somebody. We took short coffee break. I think it was once a week or something, just to talk about nothing and everything.
Yeah. Why is that so important? What do you think we gain from it?
Well, I think that you gain a little bit of background with your team. And for me, when you get to know your team, it's not what competences do you have, what have you done before, and what's your expertise. It's also about how you work in your work role. So for me, I need to do, if I have something really hard, I need to do that in the morning. Because in the afternoon, I was like, I get a dip and I can only do rational things. And other people, they're really tired in the morning. I had a colleague in Germany. You did not contact her until 12 o'clock because you had her mornings, and she was tired in the morning, but she was flowering in the afternoon. So for us to find a good way of working and when was the best time to do different things, that was really important. And to find out these things about your teammates and the people in your team, if you're a manager, is also respect. And how do you work? What do you like? How do you want to be contacted? I was like, send me an email, don't call me. It's a very different ways of, I love the chat. We always chat. And so for me, that's important.
Yeah. Getting to know and building a trust together, not so informally. Is that a word? Yeah.
Informally, and these things, and then that's what you do in a coffee break, and you learn about hobbies, and you can find out, this person knows a lot about that, and that could be helpful in some way in the future if they have a hobby or another interest outside of work that can give you an opening for something.
Yeah. Being a little bit more human, especially these days.
Yeah, decent human being.
I think we should bring back more coffee breaks, anything that can bring us more together. Yeah, that brings me to the cherry on top of today's conversation, which is your book.
Yeah.
I have a copy here in front of me.
Yeah.
The book is in Swedish for now.
Yes.
And the title is, how would you translate it? The Keeping an Eye on the Team?
So kollpåläget, it's being on top of things and being in control, but not control, but have a good view of everything that needs to be done if you are a manager.
Actually, why do you think managers have to have this helicopter perspective on everything that's happening in a team or organization, or do they have to have that perspective?
Yeah, I would say that you need to be the person who has the helicopter view on things. As a manager, you very often are the link to the next level in the organization, where you might get information that you maybe not always can pass on, or trying to understand. I talk about that as well. As much as you can give information that you can give to your team, you should absolutely do that, so that everybody knows where they are, the connection with the rest of the organization. Because otherwise they can do things, if they only know what you do in your little team, they can find ways of doing things, but that would have a negative impact on another department in the organization, for example. So it's very important to be the one. It's the same thing when you are a project manager. You are the one with a helicopter view, and you have training and recruitment and training and all the different things that you have to take into consideration as a project manager. And everybody in training, they work with these things, but then you see that, but that has an effect on that area. And if you do this, you need to do that. And that's your role as a manager, to be, the glue in between all the different people or the different work streams if you're a project manager.
And see the dependencies.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Or at least be aware of them.
Yeah.
What made you what made you decide to write this book? And I'm interested in you also directing it to someone who is new in a leadership role.
As I've worked with customer service almost my whole career, I worked a lot with call centers, big call centers, where you have a lot of young people, and they could be really good as an agent and answering phones, and then there's a team manager role that gets free, and then they apply, and then they become a manager at 24, managing their friends in their old team.
Mm.
which is really hard. And a lot of these big call centers, they don't have time or resources maybe to train new managers and send people off to leadership trainings. I've always wanted to help these young leaders, and I've felt that I wanted to uh, give away from the knowledge that I have, everything that I've learned over the years when I have been a manager and seen things that work. I've tried a lot of different things and I found something that really works. I wanted to give them that knowledge and help them along the way. So I think I've collected material for a book for over 10 years. I've had a big mind map, a big
Mm-hmm.
A3 paper that I've been scribbling on. And then a couple of years ago, I had an assignment that stopped, and my husband's, and I was like, oh, I'm really a bit sick. I wanted to do something different. And I've been doing this for so many years. And my husband said, why don't you write that book that you've been talking about for 10 years? So then I decided that I'm actually going to sit down and make time to do this.
Mm.
And I started to look at all these scribbling things. And I think it took a week just to sit down and to get into a creative mode to start with the skeleton of writing a book.
Only a week to
Well,
sit with it? Wow,
no,
I'm
but to
impressed.
really to
Yeah.
sit down and really
Yeah,
get
yeah,
my
yeah.
head into it and
Yeah.
being creative. Yeah, that took longer than I thought. I was a
Yeah.
very efficient person. I was like, I'm just going to sit down, but it really took time. I had to change pace a bit to get into a different headspace.
Mm. Mm. You had this young leader in mind, and I'm sure that that's the ones that can benefit the most of it. But I do see a book that can be applied at any stage of the
Yes.
career. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I'm a big fan of a SWOT analysis on everything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and in your book you do mention that we should strive to build teams around individual strengths.
Yes.
Could you unpack that a little bit? Why do you think?
Yeah. When you build your team and you recruit people to your team, you should focus on the strength to build a strong team. What competences do you need? And then you look for that, of course, in other people. And when you get a team, you build on the strength that is already in the team. And I've been working as an interim manager in different companies. And when I come in, it's usually somebody who's left and there's a gap in management, or there's an issue and something needs to be, they would need to do an analysis of the team and their work and things like that. And then very often I use a SWOT. When I come in, I'm completely new. I can ask any question to the team because I'm new.
Mm-hmm.
So then I always ask them to write down in their own position, what are the strengths of me in my position right here, or our team? What are we really good at? What do we see that is not working? Where do we have our weaknesses, both in my position and the team? And so I get them to write down. And when you have a team of 10 people, maybe when you put all of this together and you summarize it, you really quickly can see, okay, what are the strengths? What are we really good at? And then perfect. Then you focus on that and make sure you build on that. But then you can also look at the weaknesses and then you say, okay, so here are low-hanging fruits very often that we can fix right away and make sure that we avoid all of the weaknesses. And then you have threats and opportunities. And opportunities, you can work with, start to put a tactical or strategic plan together with all of the opportunities that you have. The possibilities are open, and see if you can work through that. And the threats, that's something that you need to handle right away. Because I would say that managers who are afraid of conflicts and put their head in the sand, don't do anything, pretend that nothing is happening, I don't see anything. That's the worst managers you can have, that don't have the guts to deal with difficult things. So the threats, you need to take to handle that right away and make a plan. Okay, how do we remove the threats? Is there a conflict? Is there something that we need to work together with another department, and so on? So with this summary of the people in the team, you can really fast get a grip on what needs to be done. So that's how I use the SWOTs to start with.
And given that you are really good at prioritizing things and structuring things personally, once you have such opportunities list and structure around what needs to be improved, how would you say, not the team themselves, but would you say from the manager's perspective, do you have some sort of a framework or way that you personally use that can help you to prioritize how you work day to day? Because obviously, manager is managing a team and works together with a team, but there is a lot of work that you need to take up
Mm,
on you and be able to almost like a entrepreneur, like be able to drive it, be
yes,
able to prioritize it.
yes.
Um,
So I usually put it into buckets, what can I
Mm.
påverka? What can I, what's this English word?
Oh my God, I don't
Oh,
know the word.
what's under my control and what's not under my control. And then the things that are not under my control, I usually try to either take it up with my manager and say, these are the things that's not working. Can you help me do something with this? Or how I'll put that a little bit on the side. And then the things that I can handle and that's under my control, I try to find what's important and what has the most output. What do we get the most effect for the team or for the company? And try to look a little bit on the priorities in with those classes.
Mm, mm. I love that. I think it's probably the easiest way to have an overview in your own head, right? You don't really
Yeah.
need much tools when it
No.
comes to that. Yeah, that made me think actually one of the things that managers often have to look for is to give people promotions, pay rises, or so on, right? And some
Hmm.
things maybe are not under, some things are outside of your control as a manager.
Hmm.
The budget, the the
Yeah.
constraints,
Yeah.
right?
Usually you don't have any salary negotiations. You have salary conversations
There you go.
with your team. Yeah. Very often. But it depends also what the company has for policy. If you'd have a collective agreement that is very controlled, or if usually it's always related to what you perform, how your
Mm,
performance.
mm,
And then it's also really important as a manager when you talk to people about their performances and salaries and all things like that, you always have to make sure that you can explain why you have given a certain percentage to somebody because you always need to assume that everybody talks to everybody.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. So you always have to make sure you can motivate why you have done things. And also how to explain for a person who maybe did not get as much as they hoped. So they ask, okay, what do I need to do to get a higher percentage next time? And then you need to have thought that through as well.
Mm,
So you need to be well prepared
yeah. And that
in that
the next
sense.
time might be in next year, right? Or depending.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
keeping that person motivated to stay in an
Yes.
organization, it's yet another topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
But
Yeah.
it is a curiosity also to find out where do you want to, where did that person want to go, and how can I help that person develop their skills or what they need to do differently to get that extra percentage on their salaries next year.
Next year. Yeah.
Mm.
Fingers crossed. Everyone who's working hard to get their pay rises is going to get that.
Mm.
Great. Yeah. If I'm a new manager starting right now, what would be your the must three tips to help them with? What would you say they should do?
Yeah. Oh, if you would have just become a manager or if you aspire to become a manager in the
Yeah.
future, I
Let's do
would
both.
say, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. I would say that there's three things that I would advise you is the first that we talked about to really learn how to listen actively. And as you say, read a little bit between the lines, but to actually learn that. The second thing is to work with prioritizing and structuring things because that's something that you definitely will need when you become a manager. So work on that and find ways and tools that you feel comfortable with. And the last one is to train on having tough and hard conversations and discussions
Mhm.
because you will always so don't hesitate to if you feel something with your friends or with your family and current jobs, if you feel that something is off and to take that discussion and to have a discussion and to talk about it and make it in a good way. Always when you have a difficult conversation, always talk out of your own experience. So when we are in this situation, I feel this, or I hear this, or I perceive this. That's the way to go when you have a difficult conversation or in an argument or so. So that's something that you should train on, to having these conversations.
I love that. Sometimes there can be even not just you and your employee, but also two teammates having a
Mm-hmm.
go at each other, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about the then and now. Given your long career, you have seen up and downs in market crashes, you have seen changes, you have seen trends, digital transformations, whatnot on the news, and now with the AI transformations happening in organizations. What do you think has changed the most in the leadership during this time?
Well, I think there is a hype when it comes to AI. Everybody wants it to do very much in a very short time. I think for the people that are actually doing the job, it's very difficult to say how the leadership has changed. But I think the way that I feel we need to change with it is to make sure that we are really, really critical. We have help. We can do things more efficiently. We can do things, but there is also a danger in having an over belief in AI that you can do anything. I had a conversation recently with somebody in HR and said there is with AI, if you type together or do a summary, instead of typing yourself and you know that it's correct, and that's the same thing when you have AI help you and summarize something, transcript, for example, you need to use a different competence to actually proofread it and to make sure it doesn't put something in there that wasn't conversational, that because it fills up the gaps, and try to make sense of something. So it has changed the things that we need to do, and it's a different competence for managers. Maybe to, instead of producing things and writing long texts, you need to proofread things, and that takes a different skill. And I think that will be difficult for some people to actually realize that they need to do different things as a manager.
The
But
change
of course,
part again.
yeah, the change from instead of producing things to check the facts, to actually be critical in when you read things. It's easy to miss things if you just scan through it and say, yeah, it looks good. And then you send it off or you present something and it's like, but it didn't really say what I wanted it to say.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like
Yeah.
it's a totally new, different, it's a new set of skills
Yes.
that we haven't even thought about. Or
No.
maybe had never signed up for.
No, exactly. So it should be to be very critical. I can have a lot of competences and I can have a lot of knowledge, but if AI has written a report or a text or put something together that you talked about in a meeting and summarize something, it does other things that you might have done. And you need to be able to proofread it.
Yeah.
To thorough and to proofread it and make sure it's accurate.
Yeah.
And that takes a little different skill set.
And we do humans are a little bit sloppy sometimes, so then the AI slope enters the arena.
Yeah.
True. What gives you hope as we move towards the future of work? Do you think that it's all doom and gloom, or is robots are going to take over? Or are you hopeful at all?
Hard. I am hopeful, but techniques, and I think that was one of the things with when I worked for Microsoft. I was not in the front technique and downloaded all the beta versions and tried them, and I was one of the last in the company to install new versions. Because I'm not really into the technical things of stuff. So I'm usually quite a late bloomer when it comes to technique. And I appreciate the physical things. I still like papers and I like things, but I also appreciate what it can open up and do. I think that we need to be very careful. So I'm taking baby steps and I'm a little bit reluctant, but I see things where it can help. But I'm afraid that some people might run too fast with it.
Mm.
But of course, I'm hopeful. I think it will maybe it will go too much on that one, and then maybe we'll come back and be on a even scale, so to speak. Not all manual, but not all automatic. It needs to be something somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in between, as
Yeah,
the Swedish say, lagom.
exactly. It's a good word.
I love that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Not too much, not too little.
No, but
That's
of
true.
course, I
That's
mean, we
true.
can benefit, I think, a lot from technique and always has. But do it with a bit of cautiousness.
Mm, mm. And you've seen many transformations, many new techniques being applied. Of course, this one is quite unique during your time at Microsoft, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's a great tip there to stay
Yeah.
a little bit more, be a bit more cautious, but not
Yeah, a
too
bit grounded
little.
and not
Mm,
run off but there are people who
mm,
does that are extremely curious, but I'm the one
mm.
being a bit more realistic maybe and taking it slowly.
Yeah, there is different stages
Mm.
of it. There are the early adopters and like you said, the late
Yeah.
bloomers.
Yeah.
Everyone who's obsessed with AI thinks that everyone else is using it. And then there's been
Mm.
some stats now that is actually not true.
No. No.
There's less of us, the
Yeah.
AI people, compared to what the world is actually needing or using. So for sure, yeah, I like that. I like that, taking a distance and being a bit more grounded. To wrap up our conversation, I know, Tineke, that you are happy to give away a couple of books to our listeners.
Hmm.
Yeah. Should we give listeners some task that they need to do before they receive it? Or should
Ooh.
we just say, message Beata and you get it? Should we give them a task?
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, we give them a task. So if they think about if they've had a manager or a leader, sport leader or something that they really, really liked, and
Mm-hmm.
to think about what they liked about that
Mm.
manager or person,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
manager or
And they can,
leader, and we will pick out the ones that they're really
oh, I love
good.
that.
If there is a lot of people who does it, because that will make them reflect
Yes.
of how a good leader should be and what they can learn
Yeah.
from that. And I talk about mentors. So I think it's really important for new leaders and who wants to be a manager to have a mentor. And if they can
Yeah.
come up with somebody and what they really liked and what they appreciated with that person and how they did things that they thought was good.
I love that. Okay. So
Yeah.
you have a task. Think of the
Yeah.
best manager you've ever had and what
Hmm.
made them the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That would be
then just,
interesting to see.
yeah, message me. I will leave the details in the notes below also. But that makes me think of, actually, I'm going to give people a hint, because I had the best manager. One of the best managers that I had was actually one of my first managers in Sweden when I moved here from London,
Hmm.
Marcus. And Marcus was a really good listener.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
He was a really good listener, and he never
Yeah.
judged. He
Oh.
was not just good listener. I told him something, but he could read between the lines.
Mhm.
He knew how I felt if I had a hard time, and
Mhm.
he would try to always help me out and crack up my strengths.
Mhm.
Like, you're so good at that,
Mhm.
versus you having a hard time at home, maybe take it easy and so on. And I remember he used to take me a few times, many times actually, on like a road trip, let's say, not a road
Mhm.
trip per se, but like a
No, just
meeting
a
in the
walking.
car.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we just drove and talked, and I think I really appreciated that. So
Mm.
sometimes those small conversations were more revolutionary than pay rises or
Mm.
anything that you could
Yeah.
get. So
Because he saw
something that
you
you mentioned,
and listened to you,
right?
and that's something that gives you value as a person,
Mm. Mm.
which is something that we all need.
Yeah, and he
Mm.
was human. You
He
know how
was
it is
a decent
sometimes.
human being. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
hope that anyone who's listening to this can think of a manager that they had.
Good
You can
luck.
either message me directly and share that, but also share your story wherever you feel comfortable, and maybe send a message to that manager, say thank you.
Yes,
Right?
definitely. The managers, it's a lonely job
Mm,
sometimes. I usually think that if I really feel that, I tell my managers because it's very nice to hear that from your team or um, from somebody that you do a good job. You're very lonely often as a manager.
don't just expect the manager to say
No,
good job for you. Yeah,
no,
to you.
no. No, if they do
Yeah.
something good, tell them as well.
That's true. That's true. Tineke, thank you for this conversation. Where people can find you, connect with you, where can they buy your book? For now in Swedish.
So I have my homepage, and it's Tineke.Gramenious.
Yeah, we dropped that
.se.
in the
Yes, exactly.
.se.
So
We dropped that in the notes below
exactly.
also.
So there you can read about the book and me and my contact details, etc.
Fantastic.
So you can reach me there. Not a
thank you
problem.
for the conversation today. It was a pleasure.
It was really a pleasure, and thank you for having me.